If people never post photos, avoid attention, and stay quiet online, this video will explain something about you that most people get completely wrong. People live in a world where sharing everything has become normal. What people eat for breakfast, where they travel, how they look from every possible angle, edited, filtered, and perfected. Social media has turned into a massive stage where billions of people show up every day, performing for likes, hearts, and comments as proof that they matter. But then there's another type of person. The kind who never uploads their own photos. The kind who turns down invitations with a calm, polite smile. The ones who sit quietly at gatherings, watching instead of participating, observing instead of entertaining. The ones who seem completely comfortable fading into the background while everyone else competes to be seen. Maybe that's you, or maybe it's someone you know. And if you've ever wondered why anyone would choose to stay unseen in an era built on oversharing, this story explains the psychology behind it. And believe it or not, the reasons go much deeper than most people realize. Let's clear up one of the biggest misunderstandings right away. When people avoid posting photos or stay out of the spotlight, others often assume they're insecure, socially anxious, antisocial, or somehow broken. But here's the part most people get wrong. They might actually be the most secure people in the room. People who constantly post images of themselves are usually searching for something: validation, approval, reassurance. They want a digital reflection that confirms their worth. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Wanting connection is human. But the people who don't post? Many of them have already found what others spend their entire lives chasing. A sense of self-worth that doesn't depend on anyone else. Think about it. If they already feel grounded in who they are, why would they need strangers to validate it? If their identity feels solid, why would they feel the need to display it online? These people aren't hiding from the world. They're simply not seeking approval from it. That kind of independence is almost radical. But there's more to the story. Because not everyone who avoids attention does it from a place of confidence. Some people learned to pull back because the world taught them to. Maybe showing vulnerability once came at a cost. Maybe they were judged, criticized, or misunderstood so many times that being visible started to feel dangerous, so they withdrew. Not because they don't want connection, but because experience taught them that staying guarded feels safer than being exposed. Psychologists refer to this as avoidant attachment or hypervigilance, a protective survival response that develops when the world feels unpredictable or unsafe. These people aren't antisocial. They're cautious. They're protecting themselves. And honestly, it's hard to blame them. Posting a photo opens the door to criticism, comparison, and the exhausting pressure of always being on. For some, opting out is simply easier. It allows them to protect their peace, to choose what parts of their life are shared and what parts remain private and untouched. Then there's another layer entirely: introversion. Introverts don't dislike people. They just find social interaction draining, even in digital spaces. Uploading a photo isn't just a tap on a screen. It's an exchange of energy. It invites comments, messages, expectations, and the non-stop hum of online attention. For introverts, solitude isn't loneliness. It's oxygen. It's the space where their thoughts can finally be heard, where reflection turns into clarity, where they recharge without the world demanding more from them. So they stay quiet, not because they're hiding, but because they're protecting their energy. And in a culture that glorifies extroversion, that choice is often misunderstood. But here's where it gets especially interesting. Some people avoid posting photos because they value authenticity over performance. They see social media for what it really is, a carefully edited highlight reel, and they refuse to play along with the illusion. They don't want to distort who they are for likes. They don't want to shrink their identity into a filtered image or a clever caption. To them, their real self is deeper than anything a picture could capture. And they would rather be unseen than misrepresented. This is identity preservation, and that takes more courage than most people realize. So the next time you notice people living quietly, don't assume they're hiding. They might be confident. They might be self-protective. They might be conserving their energy. Studies show that when people regularly post photos of themselves, their brains slowly begin to see their own identity as something to be evaluated. They start viewing themselves through other people's eyes. They become both the performer and the judge at the same time. And that mental split is exhausting. Researchers found that people who frequently post selfies tend to score higher in narcissistic traits but lower in self-compassion. The more validation people seek online, the harsher they often become toward themselves. Because every photo turns into a test. Every post becomes a performance review. And the verdict is never quite good enough. But the people who don't post? They've stepped out of that loop entirely. They've refused to let algorithms decide their worth. They've refused to let strangers evaluate their value. And in doing so, they've protected something rare. A stable, intrinsic sense of self that doesn't rise or fall with external feedback. That kind of identity is becoming increasingly uncommon. So when you see people who never post their photos, don't rush to label them as insecure. They might be the most psychologically grounded people you know. They've chosen to build their identity quietly. Away from the noise. Away from the performance. They live far from the constant pressure to prove themselves to people whose opinions don't actually matter. And that leads to an important question: what really happens when people spend a lot of time alone, whether by personal choice or because life pushed them there? Solitude changes people. It shapes the way they think and feel. Over time, it builds a kind of emotional intelligence that many people never develop. When people spend time alone, they begin to notice patterns in their thoughts, their emotions, and their automatic reactions. They can sense the mood in a room before anyone says a word. They understand themselves on a deeper level, often more deeply than others ever will. So if you live quietly, if you don't post, don't perform, don't compete for attention, it doesn't mean you're behind. It might mean you've already stepped out of a game most people don't even realize they're trapped in.